recording.
Yeah.
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 So there's plenty of stuff that we could talk about, man. It's a lot, man. I kind of wanted to get
Mhm.
into the your thoughts on the Jim Harbaugh situation and Michigan, man.
Oh man. I thought they would actually complete the investigation before they decided to suspend him. I don't
Yeah,
understand. Um, it's just like it's almost like you go to jail before you go to trial, and
I agree.
then when you're found guilty, if you're found guilty, they sentence you to time served. I mean, is that what they're trying to do here?
It really seems like it, man, because I I like I was trying to understand, like you're saying that he's suspended from coaching the games,
Right.
but on the other
Yeah.
hand, he can still coach them during practice, right? And
Exactly.
there's like no issue with that. He
Not at
still
all.
has full control of the game plan going into the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And me personally, I'm kind of against anything without doing the full investigation. Um,
Right.
I I really think that I understand like the Big Ten and the SEC and all these different conferences, ACC and all these different conferences, they have their own head. But I definitely think that college football or college sports in general needs a governing body, like an actual governing body for all of these colleges for things like this, right? Because I think what has happened is it's a situation where it's like I have to do something, don't know what to do, but I'm just gonna do something, right?
Yeah.
And you get things like this.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that the NCAA did have something in place. They had a commissioner that shares the same last name as me, Mark Emmert,
Yeah,
and he was always really famous for just not doing anything.
right, right.
Yeah, so yeah, I think they have something in place, but true to form, the NCAA isn't doing anything. And
Right.
maybe they talked to the Big Ten and said, okay, this this needs to be handled internally. I don't know. I'm not sure why the Big Ten decided they wanted to go ahead and suspend Harbaugh for those last three games, but yeah, it's so confusing, and I don't I don't if that's what happened, he's ultimately responsible because he's the guy in charge.
Right.
Um, and he should be punished for whatever advantage his players got from all the Spygate stuff like happening.
Right.
But that's why you have an investigation, and if it hasn't been determined that
Why are you
it
suspending them?
happened, then why are you suspending him?
Right. Yeah.
So
And I think, in terms of I've in terms of the suspension, the
mhm.
timing of it seemed really bad. Like
Yeah,
it came out like that Friday morning,
yeah,
right?
right.
And Saturday they have the game against Penn State, and it's like,
Hmm.
and then we don't that we're trying, he's trying to appeal stuff, and they're trying to figure out if he's going to be there before the game and all of that, and
Right.
it was all emotional. It just was everything. It was chaotic. It was so confusing, and I couldn't understand not only the timing, because like why not wait till the following Monday to announce it?
Yeah, yeah.
Why do that Friday? And I don't know. It's just very confusing, like you said. I just I, I agree. I don't think it should have happened in the middle of the year and before the investigation was complete.
Yeah, it seemed like they weren't in a hurry until they were,
Yeah.
because the investigation's been kind of lingering, for most of the season.
Mm-hmm.
And it almost felt like nobody that was in a leadership position, including the Big Ten or the NCAA, wanted to take action. And maybe they started hearing, the backlash from the media, the backlash from John Q. Public, and
Yeah.
they all of a sudden just said, okay, he's not going to be on the sideline for the last 3 games of the regular season.
Regular season.
Yeah.
But he will be allowed to coach them and prep them and, have full
Right. Yeah.
control over the game.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and you don't know if he's like on the phone with somebody, just saying, okay, here's what we're going to do
Here's
next. I
what we're
mean,
doing. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. After going through COVID, we can all do our job remotely now.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, definitely. Now, do you think that college football should do the same thing that the NFL does with the mics and the helmets? Like, they obviously have enough money. The NCAA has enough money
Yeah.
to do that.
Yeah. Oh,
But
absolutely.
why haven't they? Like, I don't know. I still don't understand why they have not done that yet.
I think um, I think college football coaches are against, or a lot of them are against um, doing something different, technology, all that good stuff.
Right.
You almost hear about all the old school soliloquies or whatever you want to say about, the coaches who are kind of stuck in the past or something, and it happens a lot in college football. But I don't even know if that's a good reason.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, high school's starting to do it and stuff. I
That's
don't
what I'm
understand
saying.
why
Yeah,
high school teams are doing it, not college.
yeah, even high school teams are doing it, and we don't see
Right?
college doing it. I don't know. I don't understand that. I think that would eliminate the sign stealing, which we've
Yeah.
it's always gone on. Not saying it's right, but it's always happened. I I mean I would bet a check that Michigan is not the only school that does that. Right?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
still signs. Allegedly. Um,
Yeah.
and so I
Well,
just
and isn't that why the other team studies tape? And
that's what tape's for. Yeah.
gathers all of this information so that when this player's in this situation or whatever, and same with those stupid signs. You see this movie star or whatever on a sign or
Yeah.
whatever, a duck, then you know that the play coming up next is this play. So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah. And there's so many things that are studied in film, like even more in
yeah,
depth than we know about. I mean, we're the fans, right? So we're watching.
right,
But I remember listening to JJ Watt in an interview, and he was talking about studying game film, and he was talking about like tendencies, and he's like, what you
yeah,
study is like this offensive lineman, if they're gonna run this play, like his leg does this if they're running if it's a pass, and his leg does
sure,
that if it's a run, like all those little tendencies, right? That's what the game film is for. That's what you study. That's what they're looking at. That's what gives them a competitive advantage.
hmm
Um, and I just think that you're going to always have, the whole. I mean, ultimately, when you look at film, you're doing the same thing to an extent. Not, I get it. They were saying that it was somebody in the crowd and they had like a camera in the glasses and all of that, but they have game film anyway. Like it doesn't matter,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So I mean, I by the based on the rules, it's cheating, but it's not something that they don't have, which also
yeah,
begs the question: why would they do that if they already have game film?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
So
really understand exactly what happened. I don't know if it's the same thing as what the Patriots did back in 2017 or
yeah,
seven. Sorry.
seven, yeah,
Um,
seven.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know what Michigan would have gained out of doing all that. I really
Right.
don't. Like you said, they have access to all that stuff. So many of these teams have such like just ridiculous social media and PR and everything else that there's not really any mystery to the game anymore. There's what's
No.
going on in the locker room, what these guys are driving, what who they're the girls that they're dating. I mean, there's no mystery. It's there's almost too much information.
Right.
So
Yeah.
if you're
It's
just gonna look
overload.
at yeah, so if you're just gonna look at some dude in the stands being all, secret spy with the glasses and the hat on,
Yeah.
like some stupid, spy movie that you saw
Spy
in the
movie. Yeah.
1950s or whatever,
Yeah.
then yeah, yeah. I don't understand what the big deal is because there's you have to pretty much be living in a vacuum in order to not have all your stuff out there, man.
I know it.
It
I
seems
mean,
like too much
and
conversation about nothing.
I agree. I mean, anybody, I could get on YouTube right now and watch the game and study. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Hmm.
Who's our friend there? Who we got?
This is Atticus.
Hey, Atticus. How you doing, Atticus?
He needed some attention real quick.
Hey, nothing wrong with that. Atticus, you
Yeah.
deserve some attention.
Oh, look at that guy.
I saw your team, the Broncos. Big win Monday
Yeah.
night.
Woo.
Yeah, big win. Impressive. I was
that.
kind of worried because special teams had struggled, and I was like, oh, it's coming down to a field
Hmm.
goal.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. Especially after the holder missed the hold on that extra point, and then the guy missed the extra point before that.
Yeah.
I mean, it is like we gave the Bills so many opportunities to win that game,
Yeah.
and they said, "No, this is yours, guys."
Yeah.
Defense,
Yeah.
yeah, the defense just showed up, man. So proud of those guys. And Russell Wilson, man, I hope everybody's just stopping because he's
Right.
showing that he's still one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL.
He looks
And I'm
comfortable
one of
now.
them. Last year I was like, man, why did we get rid of Drew Lock for this bum? I was thinking that,
Yeah.
because he just seemed like he wasn't comfortable in his own skin last year.
Mhm.
But this year, you really get the feeling that now that he's kind of really gotten used to what Sean Payton and his plan is, he's feeling it, man. And it's great to watch. I wish our running game and our blocking was a little bit better. Our run blocking was a little bit better.
Right.
But other than that, wow.
Yeah. That was
Cortland Sutton's had a good game.
Yeah.
I'd like to see Judy get some more passes thrown his way. But no, other than that, God, we stole that one, man. Anytime you can go into Buffalo and, just steal a win, really. I mean, from the start, we were taking the ball. And that's like, I think we have like 8 or 9 turnovers in the last 2 games or something. It's ridiculous.
Right. And I think Russell Wilson is comfortable. I don't think he ever got comfortable last year. I just don't think he ever got comfortable at all. He was just like, what? I think he was even asking, what am I doing here? Like, what
Hackett didn't know what he was doing, man.
Yeah.
Hackett had no clue. And you can tell how, and I hate to talk bad about the guy, but you wonder if he should have been, if he truly was a successful OC and quarterback guy, or if he was just riding Aaron Rodgers' coattail, because it almost seemed like last year they brought Hackett to town just in case Aaron Rodgers decided to show up.
Show up.
And and that never worked out. And I think Hackett, when it was decided to get Russell Wilson instead of Aaron Rodgers, he was kind of like, oh crap,
Yeah.
now I'm going to get exposed, kind of like McDaniel, where
Yeah.
it's like, oh crap, I don't have Tom Brady, I don't have Bill Belichick to hide
Check.
behind anymore. I
Yep.
have to actually prove myself. And now he's same thing's happening in New York. You
Yeah.
got a
I was just gonna
defensive
say,
minded
like,
coach. You got Zach
coach. Yep.
Wilson. Yeah, they're sick.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I agree, man. I was just gonna say that it's like you expected to have Aaron Rodgers. He tears his Achilles. You're trying to
yeah,
do this with Zach Wilson, right? You're even
yeah,
worse off because you don't even have Russell Wilson. You have Zach, and
mhm.
so you're in a worse off position. And if I'm him, I'm leaning on the run because right now
Yeah.
because right now they have the defense. They have the
Hmm.
defense. You don't look. Your quarterback is not going to win you games, and
No.
right now it looks like he's going to throw more games away than he's going to win you some. So lean
Hmm.
on the run. I think they. I think what's happening is they're trying. They're constantly trying to get Zach Wilson comfortable.
Yeah.
And I just don't think it's working. Like the defense keeps them in games. If they just leaned on the run, because some of these games they have leads in, but they continue to
Yeah.
pass. And I would
Hmm.
say they should lean on the run more when they have these leads. And
Yeah.
I know the NFL is a pass happy league now, but you have
Yeah.
two running backs back there that are that can be elite level. And even if you're gonna pass, I mean, run running back screens. Like
Yeah.
sometimes I just look and I'm like, I see them. I'm like, the defense is working. All right, run the
Hmm.
ball, and it's like they will be running it, and it'll be effective, and then they'll get pass happy, and it just doesn't. So I don't know. I think Aaron Rodgers coming back is a stretch, but I wouldn't try to at this point.
Don't
They're
rush it
not.
now.
Yeah, don't rush
They're
it
not going
now,
to be.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how I feel about it. Man, it was some crazy football games this week. It was crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, last time we talked, I was like 100% all in on Cincinnati, and Burrow just did not. He didn't look good, but in the big moments, he did
Yeah.
his part. But there was just some drop passes and some things
Hmm.
that even when you look at Cincinnati's defense, I mean, you
Yeah.
know,
Sure.
Burrow did his part, but the Cincinnati defense looks to have some struggles. Without T. Higgins, they look to have some struggles.
Well,
And
and he ran into C.J. Stroud too.
yeah, well, yeah, and so I was just gonna say kudos to C.J. Stroud and that Houston offense
Hmm.
because man, this is compared to last year, it's night and day right now, and it's
Yeah.
pretty impressive.
Yeah.
It's pretty
Yeah.
impressive, man. I mean, I just between that game, Baltimore, I don't know what happened against Cleveland. They were like controlling that game. They were dominant. They were controlling it, and I was sure that they were going to win. I changed, didn't follow that game anymore, and then
Yeah.
it pops back up, and here it is, Cincinnati winning in the last seconds, and I'm like, what happened?
Right.
Super, super, super interesting week. Another guy that I'm super happy for is what's the name? Josh Dobbs up in Minnesota now.
Yeah.
From
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm really excited. He's such a likable person. Like
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever followed any of his I follow him on TikTok and
Mm-mm.
I've seen some of his interviews and he's just really a likable guy and I just wanted to
Cool.
see him succeed because
Yeah.
obviously we know how it is with if you lose, it's the quarterback's fault. If you win, it's the quarterback. And I could say there's been a few games that I've watched where Josh Dobbs did his part and the defense didn't do theirs, right? So,
Sure.
you
Sure.
know, but we just it's one of them leagues where they look at the numbers and they're like, he's never won when he started, right? He's never had a
Right.
win when he starts. So kudos to him. I'm glad for him. Is Minnesota looking depending on what Minnesota does over the next couple games, do they move on? Are they
Mm.
what are your thoughts on that?
No, I think they're just a game behind Detroit right now in their
Mm-hmm.
division. Um, I think they're good enough as a team, and especially if Jefferson comes back, um, if they can win with a guy who literally didn't know where the locker room was when he got to the facilities last week, he had to be
Mm-hmm.
shown where the locker room was. Um, that just tells you how well coached they are, and what a solid team they are.
Yeah.
And if they can win with him, then God, I wouldn't move on. I wouldn't move on from him.
Yeah.
Because Cousins probably won't be back even next year. Uh, that injury might have ended his career.
Might have,
Because
yeah.
I mean, Cousins came in the same year as Russell Wilson and Robert Griffin and Andrew Luck.
Yeah.
That was that same draft class.
Yeah.
So those guys have been around for a while.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, maybe they found their guy, and I don't see how
I
this
agree.
this guy Dobbs was the Cardinals. Were they just that bad that he could only win one game with them, and now he's already played 2 games in Minnesota and won both games?
Right.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, sure, he played the Saints. They're not doing too well
But the
this
Saints
year.
are good on defense.
Yeah, and then he beat the Falcons. So who did they got? The Broncos next.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah,
He's
because
got to
yeah.
come to Denver.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see how he plays. But no, I'm excited for the guy. I think it's cool that uh, you know that just this opportunity happened for him because, like you said, he just seemed like just a genuinely good dude. And if Minnesota wants to, I don't know what their contract situation looks like
Angeles
with
Chargers
Jefferson.
game.
Hmm.
Oh, I didn't hear you. What
Oh,
was
I'm
you
sorry.
saying? Go ahead.
Well, I'm just thinking about maybe with Dobbs as their quarterback, that could give them opportunities to sign other people because they wouldn't have to pay him as much.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I was
Yeah.
I was asking, did you happen to see the Detroit Lions and Los Angeles Chargers game?
I did not watch that game. No,
Okay.
I
That was a
didn't
very
have it.
exciting game.
Yeah.
Yeah, very exciting game. And I think when I was watching that game, in my head, I was looking at Jared Goff, and Jared Goff was out there like in my mind, I felt like that was a big FU moment. Like the way he played in that game,
Yeah.
and he was playing in LA, and I know it
Yeah.
wasn't against the Rams, I
The
know it's
Rams,
against
right?
the Chargers, but I
Sure.
felt like the way he was playing was like a huge FU moment. Like
Cool.
I can do this. Like I'm good. I'm good, you know. Um
Yeah.
and then all of that stuff comes out about what Big Wit said when
Mm-hmm.
when the trade had happened, and Jared Goff says, you know, I want to go talk to him face to face, you know, and and see what did I do wrong, like what could I have done. I want to see him face to face, and so
Right.
I like I told you, I'm extremely excited for Jared Goff. I'm excited
Yeah.
for Detroit.
Yeah.
And I want to see him succeed.
Me too.
But
Me
it was
too.
a really exciting game. Really exciting game.
Yeah, I saw the score and I saw highlights on Sports Center.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, if you like offense, wow. And
Yeah.
I think Aver, Herbert, Justin Herbert.
Oh, Justin
Um,
Herbert. Yeah.
God, he's. I hope they do something to bring a little credibility to what he's accomplished so far, because
Right.
his his best years in the NFL are going to be wasted on Los Angeles.
Right.
Because I
Well.
mean, they went out and they got stacked on defense.
Hmm.
Um, they've got, he's a top 10 quarterback.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't understand how they're not a better team than they are. They should be competing with the Chiefs every year for the division.
They really should. I think I've
I don't get
always.
it.
I don't. It seems to be coaching. Like no matter who coaches
Yeah.
there, it seems like all of a sudden they become incompetent, right? And
Yeah.
it's like they cannot win close games. Like if the
No,
game
you're
is
right.
close, they
You're
cannot
right.
win, right? And I'm like look at the game against Miami, right?
Mm-hmm.
Really
Yeah.
good, closely fought game, but they couldn't
Mm-hmm.
close it. The same thing against Dallas, right?
Yeah.
The same thing against Detroit last
It's
weekend.
Detroit.
Right?
Yep.
All these close games, and this goes back to last season. They had the
Sure.
same issue last season, and
Sure.
they bring in the offense coordinator from Dallas, whose name Kellen Moore, and
Yeah.
they bring him in, and the offense looks to be a little better, but they still can't win the close games. Like they cannot put teams away. And I don't know what it is. Like I can't
Yeah.
figure it. I just I can't pinpoint it. And it seems like just like in the clutch situation, nobody knows what to do. Right? That like either
Yeah.
the either and most of the time it seems to be on the defensive side. And like you said, they
Mm.
brought in all these people on defense. You have Khalil Mack and
Yeah.
Bosa. You
Yeah.
have a on paper they're great, but in the close
Yeah.
games they fold. I just don't
Yeah.
understand. I don't get it. I don't get it.
That's funny you say it's a curse because that's so accurate because they haven't. I mean, you can go all the way back to when Schottenheimer was their coach.
Oh yeah,
They were like 14-2, and then he got fired because they didn't, uh, go. They didn't go to the Super Bowl. When
right.
they had LT and that Philip Rivers at the beginning of his career and stuff, and
Career. Yep.
that
I'm
stacked team that was so good and stuff.
yeah. Antonio Gates and
Yeah,
yeah.
Sean Merriman and stuff. Yeah,
Shot
I mean they had
yes.
a solid team,
Team. Yep.
but
Could
they
never get over the hump.
couldn't finish. And I
Yeah.
mean, and maybe that's like because you look at when the Dan Fouts was their quarterback
Oh yeah.
and Don Coryell was their coach, and they had Kellen Winslow and
Yep.
Charlie Joyner, and they
Joyner.
had
Yep.
John Jefferson, and you look Chuck Muncie was their running back. I mean, all those stacked teams.
They've
And then
had teams.
they've had teams, but they've only been to the Super Bowl once, and that was with like
Junior Seau. That
Dan
was with
Jeffries, I think, was their
right.
quarterback. It was some crazy
It wasn't even
nobody.
that team wasn't even great. I mean, you had Junior
Dude had no
Seau,
business.
right? No business playing, and who they played the 49ers.
49ers when
Yeah,
that
they
was the
played
Steve Young got the monkey off of his back.
back.
Yeah.
Yep, that is it. That was it. That was it. And that was like a terrible Super Bowl. It was so bad.
Yeah. Now that you mention it, that year, I do believe that the Chargers played the Colts, who were quarterbacked by Jim Harbaugh in the playoffs in the AFC Championship.
AFC Championship. Yeah.
So that tells you how terrible the AFC was. And that goes back to what we talked about a few weeks ago when we talked about how much better NFC was in the AFC throughout most of the 80s and well into the 90s for 20
90s.
years.
Yep.
So it's like the
Yeah.
best you could do in the AFC for a long time there was Stan Humphries and
Yeah.
and some of the clowns that the AFC, the Bills 4 times to the
Yeah.
Super Bowl,
I
and the
was just gonna
Broncos went
say.
3 times to the Super Bowl.
Right. Yep. I was just gonna say, because
Yeah,
when you look at the Bills and poor
yeah,
Jim Kelly, like, because
right,
Jim Kelly was
right,
elite, and that Buffalo Bills team was really good, right? But they were the
yeah.
only good team in the AFC. Like,
Mm-hmm.
they
Mm-hmm.
they they were just the elite team in the AFC. So it
Yeah.
was, when you talk
Well,
about,
in
was
the
it Bruce Smith, and you
yeah,
know there's
Andre
so
Reed
many,
and Thurman Thomas, and
Thomas,
yeah,
yeah. Yeah, they just had
yeah,
a really good team, and they went 4 years, and I feel so bad for all of those guys, man. Jim Kelly and
yeah.
Andre Reed and Thurman Thomas and all of them, man, because I mean, 3 of those times they faced Dallas, and Dallas just happened to be that team, man.
Well,
And it was just,
if you yeah, if you look at it, man, the crazy thing is that I mean, even with the Broncos, they went to 3 Super Bowls in the '80s.
yeah,
They lost to the Giants, they lost to the Redskins, and they lost to the 49ers. Um, the best team in the AFC in the '80s and '90s would have been the sixth or seventh best team in the NFC because you
yeah,
had those stacked Packers teams, you had those stacked Cowboys teams, you had the
teams,
49ers, you
yeah.
had the Chicago Bears team with the
Bears, oh
greatest
yeah,
defense of all time,
hmm,
followed by the Lawrence Taylor years.
Taylor in New York, yes,
Yeah, and the Redskins. I mean, the Redskins
yeah,
won 3 Super Bowls with 3 different quarterbacks, but they had
yeah,
that crazy run game.
yep.
So yeah, so
And who was
that's
coaching them then? Gibbs? Was that Gibbs?
yeah. Joe Gibbs
Yeah,
was their
Joe Gibbs.
coach,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
yep. Well, it was the same guy who coached the Redskins offensive line. Also coached the Broncos offensive line for the 2 Super Bowls that they won in the '90s.
In the 90s, yeah.
It was
And that
Alex
was
Gibbs. It was Joe Gibbs' little brother.
okay. And that was
Mm-hmm.
the Terrell Davis.
Terrell
Yeah,
Davis, John
yeah.
Elway's last 2 years.
2
Yeah.
years, yeah. And you still had, Shannon Sharp, and
Oh, Rod
yeah,
Smith and
yeah.
Steve Atwater and
Ed McCaffrey.
Romanowski, Ed
Yeah,
McCaffrey. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, we even got Neil Smith for 2 years. He
yeah.
was with Chief. He was giving us
Oh yeah.
problems in Kansas City for all those years until he came to us and helped us win 2 Super Bowls.
Bowls. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, those were some, and y'all, I mean, I know there was like a decent pass game, because I remember using the Broncos on Game Breaker
Yeah.
back in the late 90s on the first PlayStation. I remember
Yep.
using them, and Ed McCaffrey was a beast, but Terrell Davis, man,
Yeah.
hey, when he made that one cut, it
Mm-hmm.
was that he makes that one cut, man, and he was, because he had a combination of the speed. He
Mm-hmm.
wasn't like a super speedy back. He was more of a balanced back, but he only needed one cut. When he made that cut, I think his vision might have been his greatest asset,
Yeah. I
because
agree.
when he made that one cut, I mean, he just knew where the gap was. He knew where to be, where to get
Yeah.
to for those runs, man. I think his vision was definitely his biggest asset.
Oh yeah, that was the thing they used to always talk about, and I'm impressed you remember that he would always like hover, and then as soon as that gap opened, that's all he needed, and he was gone. I mean,
Yeah,
it was so much fun to watch, and you know, but that goes back to that offensive line who was smaller than everybody else,
right.
but you know, they had the fundamentals. They were well coached. They
Coached.
were
Yeah,
they were a little dirty. I mean, there was
yeah,
a lot of stuff that they did that was considered illegal,
They
But
had to be dirty though, man. They played the Raiders.
yeah, they played the Raiders. They played
Yeah. They
twice
had
a
to be
year.
dirty twice a year. They played the Raiders twice a year. They had to be dirty. That I
Yeah.
whenever historically Raiders might be the dirtiest team in history,
Oh God,
in my
yeah.
in my opinion. Yeah,
No, there's
Ra-
no doubt about it. Yeah,
yeah,
and
Raiders.
they'd be the first one to tell you that's something that they're proud of.
Right. Oh
Which is
yeah,
good on them. Hey,
own it.
yeah.
Yeah, they owned it. I don't know, man. I think when we look at the history of football and the great running backs, like we tend to forget about like we don't talk about the defenses because especially about like, the 70s, 80s, the 90s, it was run. If you had a good run game, you usually had a solid defense too. The teams that were
Sure.
winning, and I think we kind of forget that, man, because a lot of those Super Bowl teams, it was run heavy and a decent defense.
Hmm.
Because even when you look at the Dallas Cowboys, like I know it's mentioned with Troy Aikman, Jay Novacek, uh, uh, and Michael Irvin, and
Yeah.
Emmett Smith, but we don't
Yeah.
we don't talk about like how good that defense really was, right?
Yeah.
We yeah we
Yeah.
and even when you go back to like when we talk about Buffalo had a really good defense.
Sure.
They couldn't stop Dallas, but they had a good defense.
Yeah. Well,
And
nobody in the NFC could stop Dallas either. So
yeah, that's very true.
yeah.
Very true. Very true. And
Hmm.
um even when you go back, to the 80s and we look at the Bears, those teams were, that was defense,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
the Giants, with their
Hmm.
success, that was defense, you
Yeah.
know.
Well,
Um,
and the Giants Super Bowl win was also thanks to Phil Simms just having the most unbelievably lucky game of his career.
career, yeah,
He tossed like 18 out of 19. It's still a record for the highest completion percentage. There were plays where balls were literally tipped in the air and hauled in by Giants receivers and stuff. Just there was
yeah,
so many things when I
bounce their
remember
way.
that game. That was the first Super Bowl that the Broncos played in that I remember.
Got
And
you.
it seemed like just everything. I mean, and we were up at the end of the first half, but it's like everything just bounced the
Bounce
Giants' way,
way.
and Elway was doing it all by himself because we had the three amigos, Mark
Hmm.
Jackson and Ricky Nattiel and Vance Johnson. Those were our receivers, and we had Sammy Winder as our running back, um, and our tight end was Clarence K. Our defense wasn't even that special. Our defense was just really good at just being in the right place at the right time with the
Time.
interceptions. And I mean, that season was so crazy because I remember there were so many games where we won because we just uh, in the past we had lost games like the Chargers
Right.
at the end of the game,
Couldn't
but
close them out.
for whatever reason, maybe John Elway's partly responsible for that. Things just always went our way, and it went all the way. I mean, you saw the 2 minute drive that John Elway racked up at the end of the game against the
Yeah.
Cleveland Browns to get to the Super Bowl.
Right.
But then we got to the Super Bowl, and part of it was just we were just so happy to be there because it's only our second appearance, our first in forever.
Hmm.
Um, you know, um, and it just blew up in our face, and then that turned out to be the most competitive Super Bowl we were in
Right.
out of the first three that John Elway played in. But yeah, there's that Giants defense, um, they made it possible for Phil Simms to win
Oh
two
yeah,
Super Bowls. You
Bowls.
know,
Yeah,
and yeah, he like I said, he had the game of his life.
right.
Which is good for him. But yeah,
You were
it
you
was
were you were talking about John Elway, and well, you're older than me. I was born in '83, so I was really young in the '80s.
mm-hmm.
But I go back and follow that stuff.
Yeah.
But I've often thought, speaking of John Elway, I can't really think, but was John Elway one of the first scrambling quarterbacks? Because I think people forget that he could
Oh
scramble and
no,
run.
he was a great scrambler, and he had to be because we didn't have much of a running game. The first really good scrambling quarterback, according to my dad, I he's always talk about John Elway's great, but he'll never be Fran Tarkenton. And he
Okay,
would talk
I got
about all the scrambling and all the just craziness that came with watching a Fran Tarkenton quarterback that game. And
you,
I
got
had a
you.
chance to see a couple of him his last few years in Minnesota. But yeah, he was probably the first true scrambling quarterback in the
Right.
NFL. But yeah, John Elway's
Yeah, I
he used to lead our team in rushing, kind of like what Allen's doing in Buffalo now.
Buffalo. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I was asking because I remember one time I was going back and I was just like kind of looking at stats and I was like, oh, John Elway was like he could scramble, like he could
He did.
like when you look at his rush yards and I looked at some like YouTube videos and I was like, oh, he could he could scramble, and I was like,
Yeah.
was he like the first one? But I can't. I guess I got to go back and look at other film. But for me, for what I know, I look at John Elway, and in my mind, he's like the first one that I've seen be a
Yeah.
scrambling quarterback. You know,
Yeah. He's one of the first ones. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, if, I know Denver. Um, Sammy Winder had one season where he ran for like 1,200 yards or something like that, and
Okay.
um, then we got Bobby Humphrey from Alabama, and he was a beast, but he got injured early in his career, and we never saw any good running backs. Um, and I hate to say that because so many of the running backs that the Broncos had in the '80s, like Sammy Winder, we had Tony
Mm-hmm.
Dorsett for a couple of years. At
Years.
the end of
Yeah.
his career, we
Mm-hmm.
had Gerald Wilhite, who was just an amazing athlete. He used to actually throw touchdowns too. The Broncos had these trick plays that they were doing
Mm-hmm.
back in the day, where Elway would like toss the ball to Gerald Wilhite, and then he
Okay.
would like toss a 50-yard touchdown, to one of the amigos and stuff.
Oh
We had
wow.
Steve Sewell, who was a great running back and receiver more than anything from the University of Oklahoma. There were lots of really good running backs in Denver, but nothing good enough to where Elway didn't have to assume a lot of the load when it came to rushing for the Denver Broncos in the '80s. But he was such an amazing freak athlete that he could handle it. You
Right.
know,
And he was I believe he wasn't he drafted twice for the Major League
no,
Baseball?
he was getting ready to go. He had already been drafted by the New York Yankees and was
Right.
playing baseball for them when he got drafted by the Baltimore Colts.
Okay,
And
yeah,
he
because
said, "You better trade me." The Colts. He said, "You better trade me, or I'm just gonna go play baseball." Because
okay.
he was already playing for, and he was hitting like 400 or something like that in AAA
Really? I did not know he was
for
hitting
the
that
New York
high.
Yankees. Oh yeah, he was
Yeah,
a stud.
wow.
He was going to be their next center fielder, man.
Okay. I
He
know
was he was
I know I had I I believe it was him. I want to say before he finished high school, uh, Kansas City Royals had drafted him or
Hmm.
something. I was
I'm gonna have to go
I'm
look.
a,
I never heard of that, but yeah.
yeah. I'm gonna go back and look at that. But
Hmm.
yeah, like I can't. I wasn't. I was a baby. You know what I mean? I wasn't
Yeah,
even
right.
born yet. So but I always like to go back and
Yeah.
hear the stories from people that did see it and do know more about it. Than I do. But that's impressive. I didn't even know that he hit that well
Oh
in the
yeah.
majors.
He
You
he
know.
was stealing. He was stealing bases. He was hitting home runs. They said that he could stand on home plate at Yankee Stadium and throw the ball over the center field wall.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that's how
Yeah.
crazy freak of an arm he had and everything. It was insane. He
Yeah.
was
I
just he probably would have made 10 times as much money playing baseball.
Yeah.
He'd probably be in Cooperstown right now in the Baseball Hall of Fame instead of the
Mhm.
Hall of Fame in Canton. I mean, yeah, that guy was just. It was fun being a Broncos fan in the '80s and '90s because that dude was just
Cause
all that,
him.
man.
Yeah.
Oh,
Cause
it's so much
yeah.
fun.
I
When you grow up with a guy like that,
yeah.
it's that's why so many Broncos fans are still Broncos fans because they have those
Right.
memories, you
Right.
know, of the
Right.
amazing times.
Good deal. Yeah. Like,
Yeah,
and that's the cool thing about back then too is people stayed with their teams. Like
yeah,
I get it. It's all political now and everybody's like wanting to move everywhere and all of that, and
yeah.
I'm not happy here. I want to go here and all of that. But I miss the days where you was with your team. Like if they drafted you, it was like an 80% chance you were gonna retire with them,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
and those days are gone, man. It's when your contract is up, you're probably on to another team. It's more likely that you're not staying in unless you're a Patrick Mahomes, and even still, I mean, we thought Russell Wilson would
exactly.
be a Seahawk forever, and
I was gonna
we
use him as an example if you
right,
brought. Yeah,
yeah, we see what's happening with that. So I mean,
yep.
I thought Matthew Stafford would be a Detroit Lion forever. See,
Or seeing Aaron Rodgers in a New York Jets uniform.
form
You know,
exactly like those things. We that's gone. Like I don't even think you know. I don't. The younger quarterbacks that are in the league right now, I like Kyler Murray's not going to be a Cardinal forever. Like
no.
he's gone. Like I see 2-3 years he's on to another team.
Hmm.
Um, Deshaun Watson's probably going to play for a third team. Like
You think?
yeah, I think so. I think he's going to get signed by a third team. I know he just went surgery. He just went under
Yeah,
season-ending
his
surgery
season's
today.
over. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, even they had an impressive win against Baltimore, but I mean, do you think Cleveland can still be competitive in that division without him?
No,
No,
no.
I don't think so either.
I don't
I
know how they're still competitive with him. I mean, Cleveland is the weirdest story. And I have
yeah,
one of my best friends from my last tour in Germany who lives here in North Carolina is a lifelong Cleveland Browns fan, and we talk all the time because
hmm
you know what the hell,
yeah,
how with everything that's happened with Deshaun Watson, are they still like a playoff team? I mean, it just blows my mind. I mean,
yeah.
but then you think about the running game that they've got and the defense that they have.
hmm
And this isn't even a down year for the NFC North
It's
because the
not.
Ravens are good. The
Yeah,
Steelers are playing their butts off. The
right.
Bengals, we thought last week that the Bengals were the best team in the NFL. And but
Yeah,
but that goes back to what you said last week about you walk away every Monday after the last game and you're like, I don't even know what's happening this year.
right.
Because
Yeah,
because
yeah.
last week it was the Bengals, and this week you're like, I
I
don't
don't
know
know.
who the best team in the NFL is.
I don't.
You know, the Eagles are the only consistent team, but they
Right.
didn't play last week. The Chiefs, they didn't play. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's
I don't
happening,
know. And then
but I'm loving every minute of it.
all of a sudden, San Francisco looks like, oh no, we're still the team. Like we just took
Yeah,
a break.
yeah,
Like we took a break for 3 weeks.
yeah.
I mean, San Francisco like was firing on all cylinders
They were
last.
crushing everybody.
Yeah, crushing it. And I'm like, and then I'm like, well, are the Jags good? Because what?
Yeah,
And
not anymore.
Can Houston surpass the Jags?
Yeah,
Like, and we thought for sure the Jags were winning that division. And after this weekend, I'm like, or
not
not.
so sure.
Like but it's fun. It's fun though. I like it like that.
Yeah.
Like I like it like that. 'Cause
Well, and like the Broncos just beat the Bills. The week before that, they beat the world champions, the
yeah,
Chiefs.
Kansas
And
City
then like
Chiefs.
3 weeks before that, they let fucking Miami score 70 points on them.
Points on them. Yeah, right. Yeah. So
What the
it's
hell?
yeah, it's like what are we doing here?
What is happening here?
And then now Miami looks normal over the last, I mean,
Yeah,
I know they didn't play recently, but
right.
it's I don't know. Like Houston all of a sudden looks good and they look like a team to be reckoned with and
But
and
wait until next week. Yeah.
right. It's like what's gonna happen? I mean, and Pittsburgh's kind of like flying under the radar because they're like number
Yeah.
two in that division.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah. It's
like,
like
how?
all the drama about firing Canada, their OC,
OC, yeah.
was like a distraction because then all of a sudden they're like 6-4 and they're a playoff team, and you're like, wait, I thought you were firing their offensive coordinator, and they're like, no, we're just going to go ahead and win the freaking AFC North,
Right, yeah. So it's and I thought I was sure that Detroit would like be up way ahead of anybody else in that division, and Minnesota's like right on their heels.
One game behind with a quarterback that literally just got off the plane.
Yeah, like he's still staying in the team hotel.
Yeah.
He's still staying in the team hotel. He hasn't even found a place to live yet, like so it's crazy.
Lost you for a second.
So yeah. Basketball, man. I haven't. So I didn't watch that game last night, but I did see a bunch of videos.
Dude, Wemby looked like ass last night.
Oh yeah.
He's still learning. There's still hope for that guy, but yeah, he got that dude turns the ball over way too much. I mean, I know they love the fact that he's a big guy who can handle, but maybe he shouldn't be handling that much.
It, yep.
But with that said, I don't think I knew until last night how good that Oklahoma City team is.
They were good last year.
Yeah,
that young team,
I mean,
and they snuck up on people because it wasn't until the end of the year, and I was like, "How are they a playoff team?" I didn't hear nothing. Like I knew they just were a young team, and people were like, "They're a young, good team," and I was like, "Okay, well, maybe in 2 or 3 years." And then they were in the playoffs last year, and I was like,
"Right now, yep."
Oh,
yeah,
okay. And then I was watching them, and I was like, "Oh wow," And last night, the way they beat San Antonio last night,
man.
I was like, "Okay," and they're solid right now. They're not. They're no slouches. They're solid right now, and I'm glad you brought that up. That how good on the sneak that they are. They're flying under the radar, but they're a really good team.
Oh, and that point guard is so much fun to watch. And their tall guy. It is what it is. I don't know. I don't care about that whole narrative because that was the whole thing that everybody was talking about was the 2 7'4" guys or whatever,
Right.
who were taking the NBA by storm. But yeah, there were so many more players during that game that just stole the show. And the
So
second thing that's really surprised me so far this year is how much better the 76ers are without James Harden.
James Harden, and how much worse the Clippers are with him.
Holy cow. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe, he's only been there for 3 days, so maybe once they get a chance to gel or whatever, they should be a better team than they are.
They're 0-5 with him.
But, yeah, look at what Maxey is doing in Philadelphia.
He can shine now.
He had some games during the playoffs last year where if he had some support, they should have won because he took over some games last year. And the game that I saw with him, and I think it was Boston or something, it reminded me, how fast he is. He's probably the fastest basketball player in the NBA. I mean, he gets places faster than anybody else. Right. But just that kid can take over a game like nobody's business. And he's not even the best player on his team, you know, if you're looking at, accolades and stuff. But, yeah, the Sixers have really, really impressed me so far this year. And, without James Harden. And the Thunder are just fun to watch, man. Yeah. I'm just having a blast watching them.
I found that out last night.
Games, but yeah, they're going to be good for a long time because that team is young. That's the youngest team in the NBA.
Yeah, it is. It's young, and it is fun. It's fun to watch them.
Their coach looks like he's 24 years old. But yeah, he's smart and he's comfortable, and that was just a fun game to watch. I like the announcers. I like Stan Van Gundy.
Yeah.
The announcers were fantastic. The game was really fun, not because of Wemby or that. Sorry, I can't even remember the tall guy.
I can't remember. Yeah, I can't either. I can't. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know
or something like that.
I don't know half the players on OKC, but they're fun.
Yeah.
Like I don't know them, and part of that is because I just don't follow college basketball the same way anymore, and I don't know. The draft is different now.
I'm not a college football fan either. I'm or college basketball fan either.
Yeah,
I'm not even much of a college football fan, to be honest with you.
I follow college football, and I'm not a fan of any one team, but basketball I've been done with for some time. Overall, I mean, I do watch, the Final Four and all of that, but these guys that they're naming and the colleges they're from and stuff, I'm like, don't know them, but they're fun. You know what I mean? Well, don't know who they are, didn't see them, but they're fun.
With 90% of them, you can't get used to them because they're only there for one season.
Right? Yeah, very true. That's very true, and. When you look at the future,
that was his name.
Okay, when you look at the future of basketball, I mean, we see more and more players coming from other countries and
from Europe.
Yeah, from Europe, man, and I think that goes back. I've mentioned this before, like that goes back to fundamental basketball, right?
It's funny you mention that because I heard an interview the other day, and they talked about the difference between young people playing in America basketball and the young people playing basketball in Europe. And they said that in America, a kid who's 17 right now will play 6 games in a week, but only practice once. Right. They said in Europe, those same players in the same situation will practice 6 days out of the week, but only play in one game. And
Right.
that's why those players are coming to America and they're already ready because they've got all those fundamentals and all that stuff, that all the bad habits that they have to break them out of, from playing in AAU. It was
Right.
Doc Williams who was talking, or no, Doc Rivers
Doc
was
Rivers,
talking about, just following his son around when they were doing all the AAU. And he's like, these kids would be 40 points up and they wouldn't take their best players out and stuff. And he said, and during halftime, the players wouldn't even do shoot arounds or anything. And he said he yelled at his kid one time, and his kid's like, Dad, I have to play 6 more games today. I just need some rest.
Yeah.
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 And it's
crazy.
Just playing.
Yeah.
They're not really teaching them anything. They're just these coaches who were just bus drivers. Right. When you think about these AAU coaches, they're just bus drivers getting them to the gym on time, who just give them the ball and let them play,
Right.
And
it's not organized.
Really not teaching them. Yeah. They're not teaching them anything. You can't teach some of these kids these days anyways.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And that's, that's why we're looking at, like, Nikola Jokic. It's so he does make it look easy, but he's really playing fundamental basketball. Right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. I mean, and like you brought up the amount of time that they practice, but not only that, they're practicing, but they're practicing against, because, like, look at Luka Doncic. Like, he is been playing pro basketball since he was 14. He's he's been playing with grown men since his early teen years. Yeah. Like, you're not gonna strike any fear into him. Like,
no,
he understands fundamental basketball, and he's not fearing anybody, because it's like, dude, I've been playing adult men who've been to war. So, like, in his country, it's like, him coming to play in this league, it doesn't scare him. It's like, what can you do or show me that I haven't seen or I don't know, right?
Exactly.
And I think that's what's happening, because, like, even when we see some of these players that have these extreme amounts of talent, the talent only gets you so far. But if you don't understand the fundamentals, it doesn't work. Like, it doesn't work. That's only going to get you so far, right?
Yeah. Because if you look at MJ and Kobe and Bird and Magic and Kareem and Bill Russell and Will Chamberlain, they're probably as athletically gifted as anybody that's ever played the game. But they're not known for their athleticism. They're known for their freaking work and their IQ,
their basketball IQ, understanding the game.
Oh God, yes. And their competitiveness.
Right.
I mean, their teammates hated all of them because they demanded so much out of them at the same time. And other than a few players, there's not really anybody out there that fits that description anymore.
Jimmy Butler, that's it. Like,
Jimmy Butler's a great example. Yeah,
Jimmy Butler. I mean, like, of course, Carl Anthony Townsend didn't like him, like, because he was making him work. Like, he's making him do more. Like, because Carl Anthony Townsend's one of those players that I speak of that has great talent, but that's it. There's no more effort outside of that. Like, I can't remember who it was that was talking about, like, Kobe saying, like, these players get here 5 minutes before practice and leave right after practice. Why am I going to pass them the ball? Like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, why am I going to pass? I don't want to pass them the ball, right? And so we have this narrative of Kobe being a ball hog, but it's like, he's like, I don't trust y'all, right? Like, I know the work that I've put in, right? I know the
Yeah.
nights that I've spent in
Hmm.
the gym. Like even, where they were talking about when he broke his hand, he was at he was at the gym still working out. He's like, I
Yeah.
still have another hand, right? And but that's we don't see that anymore in
No,
the
you're
league.
right.
And you could, like, I know people make a big deal out of Nikola Jokic, and they're like, well, he doesn't, when the season is over, he just goes to tend to his horses and all of that. But it's like he's he understands the fundamentals of basketball. He knows he has
He's
the talents. He understands the fundamentals, and it's easy for him. I mean, he's really
hmm
making it look easy. It's
sure.
hard. It's hard. It's probably hard for me to say it's easy for him because I can't. I'm not in his head. He probably really does feel like it's easy, but for him, it's like, yeah, if I can go and tend to my horses and not work out for a couple months and come back and everything is still the same, why am I
Yeah.
gonna, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, nobody's challenging me. I'm not
Yeah.
challenged.
Hmm.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's it's a different time. Like you said, the I mean, even like let's take Zion Williamson for example.
Yeah.
Great talent, man, but
Yeah.
I mean, you're more worried about who you're dating and being with the. I don't know. It's for me. It's more of a fashion show now, and
Yeah.
yeah, these players are talented, but they're more worried about the outside of the game world
Well,
versus.
was it New Orleans that had a fashion show or something before the beginning of the season?
Season. Yeah, I think it was.
There
Yeah,
was. I, come on, man. They literally had
exactly.
their players walking down the runway like they were fashion models.
Right.
And I think that's, I mean, and we're both in the media. Um, I think the public relations people are ruining these guys because it's all about, the likes and the what is it, how much, the audience and
Right.
how many views that you have on
That you have.
Instagram or
Right.
on and it's just exhausting, man. I mean, I
It is.
I personally wouldn't want to hear from any of my players until after they've retired.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's like the Broncos offensive line for so many years were famous because they wouldn't talk to the media, and it was they even had like this, because you have like swear jars in the office. They had a jar that they used to keep, and if any of the offensive linemen would say something, they'd have to put $100 in the
In the
jar.
jar. Okay.
And at the end of the season, they take that money and they'd all go out to dinner or something. But it was always funny, but now that I look back on it, I wish all my players would not talk to anybody. The media, not as bad. It's the team's social media and their public relations people
Relations. Yeah.
that just annoy the shit out of me.
Right.
They're where they do the fist bump and then they give them a freaking star Skittles or something like that, and you're like, what
Yeah.
the hell is what are we doing, guys?
Right.
Oh, yeah,
And you know it's crazy that you say that because I don't know if you saw this or not. I don't know if you saw where they were interviewing Shador Sanders, right?
yeah,
Um, after I don't know if it was the loss before this one, and they were asking about the offensive coordinator and who's calling, who's going to be calling the plays or whatever. And I was impressed, but I'm not impressed because his father is Dion. So Dion
sure,
Dion has taught them, right? And
sure,
Shador said, "Oh, you're just trying to stir stuff up. I'm not going to entertain that."
sure,
Like, and left it like that. I'm not going to entertain that.
cool,
And that was such a professional thing to me because he could have said something that could have got a bunch of likes and sparked something, but he just simply said, You're just trying to create a narrative, and I'm not going to entertain it. Like I'm
Yeah,
not even I'm not answering that. Like,
yeah.
and
Well,
I
the NFL players are throwing their coaches and stuff under the bus. You
under the
know.
bus, yeah. And I that's in house stuff, man. I just don't think if I'm doing a press conference and I'm upset about something
Yeah,
with the coaches, look, I'm gonna go talk to the coaches. I'm not gonna
yeah,
sit up here the media and be like, this and that and that, because it's for one, it's not helping anything, right?
yeah,
It all
yeah.
it does is make things even more tense in the locker room, right?
Sure, sure.
And it's all about the clicks and the likes, and even
Yeah,
with the tweets, right? I don't like, with after the game
yeah,
against Buffalo, right? And Stephon Diggs' brother, Trayvon Diggs that plays for the Cowboys,
yeah,
and was like, yeah, my brother got to get up out of there.
yeah.
Like, then
Come
for
on,
me,
man.
I would, if I'm Stephon Diggs, I tell my brother, hey man, take that down, man. Like,
Dude, yeah,
don't
you can't do that, man.
don't do that.
You're just gonna make the whole situation harder here.
Right. Yeah,
You know,
exactly. Yeah, I tell
you
him,
know.
pull that down, man. Don't speak, like, this is where I play at. So don't make it
Hmm.
tense for me. Like, don't do that. Like,
Sure,
if
sure.
I haven't said nothing about it, you don't say nothing about it. You
Yeah,
take care of
but
Dallas.
there's something to that because we've already talked about how unhappy Stefan Diggs is in Buffalo.
We did talk about that.
And
You're
I
right.
know it because a lot of it's because of McDermott, but I think him and Josh Allen have a beef or something.
I that's where I think they have a legitimate beef.
Yeah,
I think there's an issue there. Um,
yeah.
I just don't know which one between the two is going to be gone first, but it's probably going to
So
be Diggs.
maybe Diggs's brother knows a little bit more information about the beef that Allen and his brother have,
Right.
and now he shouldn't have said anything because that's not going to make anything better.
Better. Right.
But you know, at the same time, if I'm Stefan Diggs and I've got these problems, I'd be like, I don't care anymore. You know,
Yeah.
it's not going to like you're going to throw it to me less.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Because you're still throwing it to me a bunch. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I don't like you said when it comes to the media and this and all these different things. I mean, because like even like um James Harden responded to the commentator from the Dallas
yeah.
Mavericks.
That
Uh,
was funny.
yeah, that was very it was funny, and I'm gonna be
It was
honest
on
with you.
point, man. It was
It
on
was so
point.
accurate. It was so
Yeah,
accurate.
he
It
was
was
not
so
wrong.
accurate. He wasn't
He
wrong
was
at all. And
because yeah,
James Harden has responded, and he's like, "You don't know what's going on. Da da da. You're not me. You don't know what's going on. You're not, and all of this or whatever." And I get, I get it. You're trying to protect your image and all of that, but let's call a spade, man. James, what he
hmm
said was accurate, man. You're not good. You're gonna find the issue wherever you go, and that's
exactly. But that leads me to this question: if you are the guy who is trading everything for James Harden, is there some delusional thought in your mind that thinks that it's going to be different this time now that he's on my team?
you
You know
know
what you're getting
what you
when you
yeah
give that up. So I don't feel bad for the Nets. I don't feel bad for the Sixers. I don't feel bad for the Rockets. I don't
yeah
feel bad for anybody because you know
what you're
what you're
getting.
getting. Yeah. So just
So one of the theories that's flying around is that the Clippers did that because they're going to be in their own arena next year,
yeah,
and
yeah.
to
Steve
have
Ballmer's spending some money. Yeah.
right, and so the theory is that Steve Ballmer knew that if he had Harden on his team, it could generate ticket sales.
Right.
So the theory is that's why he did it. It wasn't about wins and losses or the drama. It was about the ticket sales next year. I don't know that I agree 100% with that theory.
Right.
It could be partly true. It's like, why not? If my team's going to be playing in their own arena, but
Right.
like you said, I don't feel bad. Like I don't feel bad. You know what you're getting with James Harden,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a really good chance that this year ends, and James
Yeah.
Harden wants to leave there too.
Sure.
So I mean it's a really great chance. It's above 50 because we've seen him do that, right? We saw he just did it in Philly, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so
Same thing. And he
yeah,
did the same thing in New Jersey or Brooklyn.
yeah,
But here's my thing, man. If I'm Westbrook and I'm Paul George and the rest of the Clippers, I mean, these guys are all kind of just living off of their legend, anyways, man.
yeah,
Because I don't think, unless it was 8 years ago, these guys have a chance, anyways.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, these guys were the best in the business,
Yeah,
but that was so long ago. But they also weren't the best. They weren't good enough to win it all.
right,
So I don't, except for Kawhi, but yeah, I think they're all just kind of just enjoying where they're at. You know, it can't be too bad living in Los Angeles.
right,
Perfect
yeah,
weather all the time, and
yeah,
it got $40 million a year coming in and all this other good stuff. So I mean, I'm sure they're just happy to be there, and
right. Well,
and
and that's
yeah,
where Westbrook is from. I mean, Westbrook is from out there,
yeah, yeah.
and
Well, Kawhi also grew up
Kawhi,
in
yeah, Kawhi
England
is from
or
out there,
whatever. Yeah.
so yeah, so
Hmm.
they're
Yeah.
home regardless. They're
They're
home.
fine. They're just
Yeah.
fine. So I don't feel bad for any of those dudes, especially the general manager or the owner or whoever decided that it was a good idea to pick up James Harden.
Yeah,
Because we
you at
know.
this point, you
Hmm.
know, I mean, he's not changing his spots. You know,
No, exactly. That's a good.
yeah,
That's a good way of putting
he's
it.
not changing his spots. So
Yeah.
you know, you're getting James Harden. So you know what it is.
And everybody in the media, they're like, "Oh, I can't believe James Harden showed up from the offseason out of shape or overweight." And you're like, "Wait, hasn't he done that every
Yeah,
year?"
what's new? Yeah, what do you mean? He always does that. I mean,
Like,
he
oh,
does it. It was so bad last year. They were like, "Does he have
right,
on a fat suit?" Like
right.
they thought he had a fat suit on. Like so. It's like you know, like I even I said I said this last year, and I think you by the I think I put it on Twitter, and me and you talked about it. But James Harden is wanting to be like all he just cares about strippers and partying, right?
Yeah, that's why they
Right,
said he wanted to go back to Houston
right,
because
yeah,
they had
because
better strip clubs.
yeah, that's what I said. I was like, he probably wants to go back to Houston because of the strip clubs, right? So like,
I had a buddy from Houston who said the same thing.
right. So I mean, James Harden, he wants to be in the scene.
Yeah,
I just don't I think he went to Philly and was like, yeah, I'm not feeling the club scene here. I think
right.
he bases it on clubs.
Yeah.
Like I
Oh,
think a
sure.
lot has to do with clubs.
That
So
I wouldn't put that past him, man. Not at all.
yeah.
Gonna let the
So
dogs out real quick.
all right.
No. Cool. But
How's the
yeah,
weather
you
there?
know, it's cold, man.
It's hot
It's
here.
it's not like Colorado cold, but it's still like 30 degrees outside in the morning.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
cold.
not
That's
not a
cold.
fan. Yeah, not a fan at
Yeah.
all.
I hear
But I
you.
mean, when it got cold last year, it still wasn't as bad as Texas when it got real cold. So I'm not complaining.
Really? Okay. Good
Yeah,
deal. Yeah.
yeah, we never had a great freeze like you guys did last year and shit.
Yeah. That was
Yeah,
bad. I
that was terrible. I was
yeah.
I was in Texas when that happened. Man, I remember
Was you? Oh
I went to
yeah.
that playoff games with. I met you at Jester's, and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
like that day, the weather turned awful.
Yeah, I remember. Oh
Yeah,
yeah, because I remember. I remember. Yeah, because you were over there by Killeen High School, and I remember
yeah,
thinking
exactly.
yeah, I remember thinking did that delay you going back home?
No, yeah. Fortunately, it turned out.
Yeah.
Hey, I got to go to the bathroom real quick. Okay, I'll be right
All right,
back.
all right.
Cool.
Get it. All right, man. So man, we've talked
Good.
football, we've talked
Yeah.
basketball. Do
Hmm.
you do you have I know last time we talked about Boston, Boston in the Boston in the East, and
Oh yeah.
possibly you know Milwaukee.
Yeah.
I still have Denver in the West. But since you have seen how Philly is currently playing,
Yeah.
eh,
Yeah.
eh,
I
eh, are
I
they
think they're 1A and 1B. Philadelphia and Boston. Oh, did I lose you?
I'm still here.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think they're 1A and they're 1B. Philadelphia and Boston, man.
Okay, got you.
Yeah.
Philadelphia and Boston.
Yeah,
Um,
and Milwaukee's not too far. Like you said last week, once Lillard and the Freak learn to play together better,
mhm,
those two are going to be good.
yeah,
Uh, they're going to be just fine.
right.
And
Um,
Phoenix is going to, they're not even going to make the playoffs this year. That's my
you don't think
prediction.
so? You don't have Phoenix making the playoffs? That's bold. That is bold. All right.
Dude, I don't think that big three has actually played together at once yet this year.
They haven't. They
Mm-hmm.
haven't. But what if they do and it starts to work?
I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't
Yeah.
know. Who's going to be the facilitator? Is it going to be Booker? Is it going
Yeah.
to be Bill? Who's it going to
Yeah.
be?
Yeah,
Um,
that's a fair question.
are KD's best days behind him? I think so. Um,
Yeah.
I think there's so many things. Uh, yeah, I called it when they got Beal. I was like, this is probably the worst thing for them because they were an injury prone duo and
Mm,
now they're an injury prone trio, you know, because
yeah.
between the three of them over the past 2 years, I think they've missed like 179 games.
Yeah.
And then Beal doesn't play for like the first week of the season,
Yeah.
because of his back pains.
Back pains. Yeah.
And KD's always had problems, with his health and stuff.
Right.
I mean, sure, the years that he did do well, he was an MVP.
Right.
But, when you're that big and you get hurt that much,
Right.
getting old is not going to help things.
At all. Yeah,
And
I
that's what's
agree.
happening.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I agree. I agree with that. I think I'm just really hopeful. Like I told you, I'm a huge fan of KD,
Yeah.
and I just want to see him like even if it's just the Western Conference Finals. Like I would like to see him go out like looking like the legend that he's going to be. Like he's one of the greatest to ever play it,
Sure,
to
sure.
ever play. He's and I just but he's always gonna have the asterisk. They're gonna put an
Yeah.
asterisk And because people are not going to go back and look at the film, or they're not going to go back and look at the numbers. They're not going to go back and look at what he did. They're just going to see that he did that with a team that had Steph and Clay, right? And they're not going to look at the things that he was doing even prior to going there or before that.
Yeah.
They're not even going to go back and look at what he was doing at Oklahoma, right? They're you know, they're not going to look at. They're going to see that the story is always going to be they blew the series lead to the Heat and not the Heat to
the Warriors.
To the Warriors, and then he went there, right? That's always going to be the story.
But see, the way I look at it, they could have come back the next year and beaten the Warriors.
I think I agree.
I think that I think they were better than the Cleveland Cavaliers were, even with LeBron. LeBron just, they just captured lightning in a bottle when they did beat the Warriors in the finals that year. Yeah. But yeah, I think if they would have kept that team together, if he would have stayed with that Oklahoma City team, that they could have won at least one or two championships with Westbrook, who was just, he averaged a triple-double for 1 year. They had Steven Adams. They had such a good team. They had a good coach, that Florida coach that was there. Yeah. I mean, they had everything set up to be successful. And he just bailed, man.
Yeah, he did.
So,
and that's going to be that's going to be the black eye.
You talk about that legacy, but a lot of it's deserved because he had a good thing going in Oklahoma City. Yeah. And I don't know if he was just frustrated with the media in Oklahoma City because they were tough on them. And not that was not justified. I don't understand how the media can be so hard on their own team. I don't get that. I don't understand that. But there was just whatever stigma or whatever asterisk that he has next to his name, a lot of it's well deserved because they had something special there in Oklahoma City. And they lost a little bit of it when Harden left. But Harden was just a sixth man when he was there.
Yeah, he wasn't. Yeah, he wasn't the Harden
exactly. He wasn't the MVP Harden yet, but he was also, everybody knew how good he was going to be. You know? So a lot of it is the ownership didn't try hard enough to keep Harden there, but at the same time, they had a good thing going in Oklahoma City.
Right.
And I think he blew it when he left them to go to Golden State. I mean, sure, he got 2 rings, so I'm sure he's not too disappointed.
Yeah. I think he would have got those 2 rings if he stayed in Oklahoma, though.
I think he would have too. I think because he was, like you said, they were this close to go into the finals, and they would have wiped up that LeBron and the Cavs wouldn't have had a chance against them.
Oh yeah, I agree. Yeah. Like I said, I guess it's just the player who KD is. I want to, but I agree with all your points. It's part of it's gonna be tarnished because of him leaving when they actually could have continued to win. Right. So
sure.
So that's always gonna be the black eye. It is what it is.
Sure. Yeah. That doesn't mean he's not one of the top 20 players of all time.
Exactly.
Exactly. He is. I mean, it's another one of those instances where you're like, God, I'm just glad I was alive to be witness to this.
Yeah, right. And Devin Booker, I'm a fan of Devin Booker too. I like Devin Booker. I like his grit.
I can't stand Devin Booker.
Can't stand the
I can't stand Devin Booker.
Why? What is it?
I think he's a dirty player. I think Chris Paul and Devin Booker together when they were in Phoenix was, I don't know if he learned some bad habits from Chris Paul.
Chris
Paul is so famous. If he's down, his first instinct is to injure the other player. you know. And I think that's whether they're ahead or they're down, if it's a game that's out of hand, whether they're in the lead or they're behind, the guy gets chippy and the guy does stuff that in many circumstances might injure the other players on the opposing team and stuff. And that's just messed up, man.
I'm with you, and I am a Chris Paul fan because
I hate Chris Paul so much. I don't hate many players, but he's one.
The thing is, man, it's the same thing. It's like wherever Chris Paul goes, they win.
Mm-hmm.
Like they start winning. Like whether it's the Pelicans or whether it's Houston, even with LKC, that they had no business being in the playoffs.
Right, you're right.
You know, like no matter where he goes, like they find a way to. They don't necessarily go all the way because maybe it's the karma, right? But when it comes to the big moments, he's injured, right? So
he is.
Right. So maybe it's the karma for the chippiness, right? But I don't know. I think that grit is the part that I like about him. I do agree he does get chippy, and I don't agree with the dirty stuff. Devin Booker, I really didn't notice that until like last year, I guess it was a little bit, and maybe that had something to do with playing with Chris Paul. I think you just kind of become that playing with Chris Paul, but that's part of the fight, right? Like, I mean, even when I think even who was it? Chris Paul and Drew Holiday in New Orleans that year. And I think he made everybody on that team a better defender. Like I just think he made. I think Drew Holiday is the defender he is today because of Chris Paul, right? So.
And that team, that's the team. Didn't they have Anthony Davis back then too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
With New Orleans, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they did.
He's a hell of a defensive player, especially in his early days.
In the early days, yeah, definitely. But I mean, I just would like to see them do something. I have them like a 7th seed. Have them a 7th.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah,
but
everybody gets into the playoffs. So
right
saying
now,
they're not going to make the playoffs is a stretch. I know that.
Right.
Maybe that's just wishful thinking.
What are your thoughts on this in-season tournament stuff?
I'm trying to figure it out.
I don't. Okay, so I'm not the only one that doesn't understand it.
So they're basically going to have a mid-season championship, like a Final Four, from what I understand. So there's like 6 divisions. They're split up. There's all different because, like, I think I don't even know if it's the same teams within their own divisions or something. But they're playing these like they're keeping track of their record starting like 2 days ago or something like that, and then like I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah.
There's like there's a lot of weird. I don't quite understand what's happening.
Yeah, I don't get it. I'm glad. I'm happy to know that I'm not the only one that doesn't really get it. I don't know if it's something to like motivate the players to want to play all the games. If it's not resting players, kind of. I don't know.
Yeah, well, and then there's even going to be a Final Four with the championship and stuff in the middle of the season.
It could be for ratings. Maybe that.
Well, I think it's such a long season. Yeah. And they did talk about. I heard Alvin Silver talking about just how ridiculous the last couple of All-Star games were, because I mean they were having LeBron and Giannis pick
captains,
the teams and all this other stuff and there was just there was a lot of things that they were doing. I think that was kind of making everybody kind of roll their eyes because it was like, why even have a game if nobody's going to take it serious?
Serious, yeah. Like, what's the point of playing it?
Exactly. So
I definitely don't watch the All-Star game anymore. I do watch all the side stuff. I don't even watch the dunk contest. I watch the where the point guards go through the course and stuff like that.
Watched.
But for the most part, I don't
pay
pay
years since I've watched any of that stuff.
Yeah, I don't. I'm not a. It's not entertaining anymore.
No.
Especially when we think about the dunk contest. Like, I remember when you were in the dunk contest. You were like, even going back to like when Vince Carter used to do it and Tracy McGrady and like it was some big names. And that's not to shit on any of the players that have recently done it, but a lot of them you don't even know who they are.
Yeah. Well, I remember the days when like Jordan and Wilkins were battling.
Dominique Wilkins. Spud Webb.
like Julius Erving and Larry Nance. The first dunk contest they ever had. Those two were in the finals.
Yeah, Larry Nance Sr.
Julius Erving was like 45 years old. Yeah.
Yeah. You got to say Larry Nance Sr. because some of the young people.
You have to say senior now.
They'll think about Larry Nance Jr. Where's he at now anyway? Ain't he in Cleveland now? I remember he was with LA. I think he's in Cleveland now. Larry Nance.
I thought he went back because they were because that's where Larry Nance Sr. played most of his great years was in Cleveland.
Yeah, was in Cleveland. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think he got up there and they were pretty excited about that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the whole legacy thing or whatever.
Right. Yeah. But we don't have that no more because I think what it is because like you said, you go back to when Jordan and Dominique Wilkins and, Spud Webb and, just those were like big names. Right. And, and so when you look at it now, I think what it is those big names. I don't know if they're just afraid of getting showed up, like they don't want to like lose or what, right?
See, but then that goes back to the competitive side, because Jordan and Larry Bird would do the 3-point contest.
Yeah,
and they'd be like, there's so much competition that the last thing on their mind is, oh, what happens if I lose?
Right,
because they don't know what it feels like to think they might lose,
Lose, right. Because we know how competitive Jordan is at everything. The gambling on golf. I mean, even when you go back and look at the documentary, they were playing
poker on the plane or throwing the quarters against the wall and stuff.
Quarters against the wall, like I was doing that in high school, it's like every little thing, it was like it was a competitive thing, and that's Jordan's mentality, but that's that goes I just don't think that's a part of any sports now, be honest with you. Like I just don't think that competitive now it's about selling your brand. It's about selling yourself.
Yeah.
And that's all that matters. And I hate to say it, it's probably not fair. There's a player out there is like, that's not fair. I want to win. Like I'm competitive, but let's call a spade a spade. From what we can tell as fans, this is the Fandamentals podcast, right? So as fans, the way I see it is it's about selling your brand, right? And that's why players now, while they have the biggest contracts that they've ever had, they don't play as much as the players before them played, because it's like, I have they're thinking I have an event to go to. Like I can't get hurt. Like I don't want to. My shoulder hurts. If I play tonight, I'm gonna be sore for this event that I have tomorrow. Right?
Yeah.
So
Well, they used to. I remember
And I think that's Adam Silver. A lot of that has to do with Adam Silver because I remember when the Spurs were doing really well, and there were times where the Spurs would go on a road trip and Duncan or Parker or Ginobili wouldn't even go with them. And they would
Yeah.
make up some BS, injury report, but now
Right.
they're just calling it rest, this is a
Right.
rest day,
Right.
back then they were like pulling it. And David Stern was like fining the Spurs and stuff
Right.
because he says, no, there are people that pay to see Tim Duncan play in New Orleans or in
Right.
Phoenix
Mm-hmm.
or, wherever. And they don't even show up,
Right.
why are you doing this to the fans? And I think they're still doing that, but Adam Silver is so player friendly, and I'm not
Yeah.
saying that as a good thing. I'm saying that as he's afraid to be commissioner sometimes. That
Yeah.
he's afraid to be the bad guy. I think he's almost like the stepdad or something who's
Oh
afraid to
yeah.
piss off the kid,
Right. Yeah.
and it just it translates to, and even Charles Barkley was talking about it at the beginning of the season. He's like, these fools are getting paid 35, 40 million a year. Why are we talking about giving them rest?
Right. Exactly.
Especially
Exactly.
when you're trying to garner some kind of sympathy from people who work for a living,
Mm-hmm.
real jobs who are getting paid $40,000 a year,
A year. Right.
and if they take a rest day, then their paycheck gets cut, then all of
Mm-hmm.
a sudden they can't pay their freaking heat or they
Yeah.
can't pay, their
They don't.
rent.
They can't take. They can't take a rest
They
day.
can't take a rest day,
Right.
So, and then those are the same people that are paying $100 to go see you play. And then you
Yeah.
don't show up
And then you don't
because you needed
exactly.
a rest day.
Right. Yeah.
How about you
It,
show up and you play in the first quarter, or you just have a reduced role, but you still play,
play. Yeah.
But then that goes back to the competitive thing where you're like, no, I'm going to go out there, and if I suit up, if my leg's not falling off, I'm going to play, and I'm going to play to win.
Right.
There's no rest day. What?
Right. No rest day. I mean, you just didn't. I think Kobe might have been. I mean, Kobe. I mean, even Tracy McGrady. With his back injuries, T Mac
Mm-hmm.
would still try. Like he
Yeah.
wanted to. Like it took the coaches to say, "No, you can't." Like, no,
Sure.
you can't. You're like you physically can't. And
Yeah.
Tracy McGrady was like, if it's up to me, I would like to play. Like
Sure.
so. But that I mean, and I don't know what people are going through mentally, but I was really ticked off when Zion Williams said, "Oh yeah, I'm 100% physically, but I'm just not right in my mind yet." Like, what? Like, so you're 100% physically. You've been playing this game your whole life. You are on an
Mm-hmm.
NBA roster. You are making
Yeah.
hundreds of millions of dollars,
Mm-hmm.
and you're not right mentally to play.
Yeah.
You're not, like what? Like that doesn't set right with me because you're telling me you're 100%, but you just simply don't want to play because
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not ready. I'm not ready
Yeah.
to play, even though physically I'm ready to play. Like physically I can, I just don't want to.
Yeah.
And it's a thin line because then people will bring up the mental health, and I know that's a big thing now. I get it, I understand, um, I get it 1,000%. But
Yeah.
here's where my issue lies.
Yeah.
If where my issue lies is you're not ready mentally to play in this NBA game. You're 100% clear you can play, but you'll be at the club till 3 a.m. out partying, right? And I know it because we see it on IG and all these social
Mm-hmm.
media platforms. That doesn't add to me. That doesn't add up because mentally, if I'm that bothered mentally to play, I'm
Yeah.
too bothered to be going out to a club and partying as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
I could at least be watching some game film or something. Just my opinion. Just my
Sure.
thought.
No, I get you.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, because then it makes you wonder if you're being honest about the state of your mental health, or if you're just using it as an excuse
Right.
to take a day off.
Right.
You
And
know,
and and that's where the problem lies, man.
and then
That's
that's an
exactly.
insult to people with mental health problems. You know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it is, man. Because there's some people that are really battling that aren't making hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
It's some
Yeah.
people with some mental health issues that are making 30,000, and they're trying to and they're just trying to make it to the next day, and they have
Mhm.
children, and they're just trying to figure out how am I going to feed my
Yeah.
kids,
How am I gonna feed
and
them? Yeah.
right. They're battling some, and that doesn't mean like, you know, money takes away the demons that you may face, but for
Sure.
somebody again, it goes back to if you're making hundreds of millions, but you're still and you're dealing with mental health issues, I don't think you going out to party at 4 o'clock in the morning, and not playing.
Yeah.
Like I for me, so even like when I'm having stressful days, my favorite place to be is out on the water. Like
Yeah.
that's what I enjoy. If I could go pro fishing, I'd go pro fishing, right? And
Right.
if I'm having some mental, because if I feel like if you're in the NBA, you obviously love it. Like that's your passion, right? Like, you know, so don't you want to be where you feel most
Yeah.
free,
Yeah.
right?
Unless you're
I mean,
Joker and you want to be with your horses, right?
yeah, right. That's a good point, right? Unless you're Joker and you're just ready to get back home to be with your
Uh,
horses and drink beer, right? So, yeah,
right.
different.
But no, I totally agree with what you just said because there are so many people who are truly struggling and they don't have hundreds of millions of dollars in the bank
Hmm.
to help them because I money solves a lot of problems.
Yeah,
And if one of them is okay, I'm not going to be able to work today, but it's okay because I have 20 million in the bank.
bank,
You
right,
know, I'll be all right, and that all of a sudden my mental problems aren't as bad.
right,
Because I don't have to worry about, like you said, feeding my kids, paying my rent, making sure the lights stay on. You know,
right,
what if my car all of a sudden blows up? You know, how the hell am I going to get to work? Those are
right.
real problems, and
Real, yeah.
Zion don't know shit about that.
No, yeah,
Yeah,
not none of, yeah, doesn't know about that. I mean, there's 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 people that are walking to work and they're praying like,
hmm
I hope it doesn't rain,
yeah,
like so that I can, or I hope it doesn't rain till after I get to work because I gotta
right,
walk, right?
yeah,
He's, like those are things, right? Like they don't have the option to say, they can't say I'm not coming to work today because it's raining, right?
right,
They can't afford to do that. So
right,
I think that's something that as a fan, and I'm sure fans across the country feel it's a slap in the face that these
yeah,
athletes say, I need this break. I mean, you
yeah,
chose that lifestyle to be in the NBA. Like, and you understood the work and dedication, right? I mean,
mhm,
yeah, you know that it's gonna break your body down. And at that point where you feel like physically you can't do it, I think that's when it's time to retire. Like,
sure,
players are
sure,
trying to play 20 years. Now, Kobe did 20 years, but he played. Like unless he was injured, I mean, I don't care what you say. The man was tough. I don't care if you don't
Oh
have
yeah.
him in your top 5. I'm as far as I'm concerned, if you tear your Achilles, get up, walk to the bench, walk back to the free throw line, shoot your
Yeah.
free throws and make them, and then walk yourself back off the court with a torn Achilles, you can never tell me that person is not tough. You
Yeah.
can never tell me that
Yeah.
person is
And
not
at the
tough.
same time, Anthony Davis got hit in the head or whatever, and they had to cart him off on a wheelchair in the
Wheelchair.
playoffs
Yeah.
last year. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, really, is that what we're doing now?
Doing right, exactly. So it's just a different time. And I'm like, I don't want to sound like the old guy that complains about how, but that's but
It's
I am
so
right. Like
accurate. It's so
yeah, it's
accurate.
accurate, so
Yeah.
it is what it is. Man, it's been great. It's been a great
Yeah.
episode. I've enjoyed talking
Yeah.
to you. This is actually the second official episode of the
Right.
pod, man. But I enjoyed it. Now, next week is Thanksgiving week.
Okay.
Are you still wanting to record? You still gonna have time?
Sure.
You gonna
Sure.
still in?
Yeah,
it?
I've got my kids are coming in this weekend.
Okay.
So we're having Thanksgiving on like Sunday.
All right.
So I will be good to go on Wednesday. Let me check. I've got got a couple things I'm doing running around the city and stuff here, but for the most part, yeah. Next Wednesday, no, I don't have anything planned. So I will be here. And
All right.
I'm sure my wife will be at work, so
Well,
this is my life.
I'll be here. I'll be here too. So next Wednesday we'll be back.
Yeah.
And everybody that that's watching the show,
Mhm.
thank you for watching and take care. I'll see you next week, man. Enjoy some
All right.
basketball this week. Enjoy some football this weekend.
Oh, absolutely. You too, man. You too.
All
Have
right,
a good
man.
one.